A bronze axe blade could be more than a tool. In parts of early Bronze Age Central Europe, some were made in forms and weight ranges similar enough to be recognized alongside other standardized bronze objects. The same blade that shaped timber could also be stored, transferred, or melted down. That created an unusual economic tension. The object was valuable because it could be used. Giving it away meant surrendering that use. Before coins, before banks, belief ruled the world. Bronze carried obvious advantages. Copper alloyed with tin could produce durable cutting edges, and damaged metal could be remelted rather than discarded. A blade therefore contained more than one kind of usefulness: equipment in its present form, recoverable metal in another. For exchange, that mattered. A recipient did not need to accept a pure promise. The material could still be worked, recast, or transferred again. Yet handing over a blade rested on a much larger system. Before the object could circulate, ores had to be obtained, fuel gathered, metal smelted, copper and tin brought together, and the alloy cast and finished. Tin sources were unevenly distributed, and Bronze Age metal often moved through networks extending well beyond where a finished object was used. The blade was portable. Its production depended on mines, workshops, transport, specialist knowledge, and access to raw material. Utility made bronze desirable. Supply made that utility possible. Early Bronze Age hoards in Central Europe contain large numbers of repeated bronze forms, especially rings and curved bars, often called ribs. Some axe blades also fall into recurring weight ranges. Archaeologists have argued that many were standardized closely enough for people to treat them as comparable without exact modern-style measurement. That does not mean every bronze axe was money, every hoard was a treasury, or one monetary system covered Bronze Age Europe. Deposits had different purposes, and many tools show no such standardization. The narrower claim is more important. Some metal objects became easier to transfer because people did not have to judge each one from the beginning. Similarity reduced negotiation. If pieces shared a familiar form and felt roughly alike in the hand, recognition could do part of the work later performed by formal units. Shape suggested a category. Approximate weight supported comparison. Bronze supplied material usefulness. The object was still a tool, but exchange no longer depended entirely on immediate use. For a household or craft producer, transfer had a direct cost. An axe blade passed to someone else could no longer cut timber for its previous holder. A blade kept as a reserve was metal not being used in current work. Melted for another purpose, the axe disappeared, even though much of its bronze remained recoverable. Utility made the object worth receiving. Utility also made it costly to surrender. Wear tightened the problem. Tools were sharpened, edges lost metal, blades broke, castings varied. Two objects that began as similar forms did not necessarily remain equivalent after use. A recognizable category simplified exchange only while the objects remained similar enough for recognition to carry useful information. Standardization was doing hidden work. A blade did not announce a denomination. No stamped authority guaranteed that one piece represented a fixed unit. What mattered was familiarity with material, form, and approximate quantity. The object carried its own evidence only imperfectly. The question was shifting from, "What is this object?" toward, "How much bronze is here?" By the later Bronze Age, fragmented metal becomes increasingly important in archaeological evidence, while weighing technology becomes more widespread. Broken tools and pieces of casting metal could still circulate because value could increasingly be assessed through quantity rather than complete form. A whole axe could communicate through shape. A fragment could not rely on the same shortcut. Once pieces were divided, weighed exchange required balances, weights, shared units, and confidence that measurement would be recognized by both sides. Metal could now travel beyond the form that had first made it easy to recognize. Value was becoming less attached to the finished object and more attached to measurable material. Utility did not disappear. Bronze still mattered because it could be recast. Measurement allowed the material to remain exchangeable after a particular object's original purpose had been destroyed. Something persisted after the tool did not. The axe could be broken. The bronze could still be weighed, divided, transferred, and remade. Bronze tools show that monetary functions did not require an object designed only for payment. A useful thing could perform some of those functions when others recognized its material, accepted its form, and expected that it could be transferred again. But the blade never carried the entire system by itself. Behind it stood metal supply, productive labor, repeated forms, shared recognition, and eventually more explicit measurement. Each step made exchange easier under some conditions while moving the burden somewhere else. Utility supported value, standardization supported recognition, measurement supported exchange after form became unreliable. None of this made coinage inevitable, nor did it replace gift exchange, obligation, barter, or other ways of transferring value. It shows something more limited and more revealing. Metal could move between being a useful object, recoverable material, and a recognized medium of exchange without belonging entirely to one category. That flexibility raised another question. If metal could be accepted because people recognized its usefulness and value, what happened when political rules tried to limit which metals should circulate at all? In the next episode, we turn to Sparta, where the question was no longer only how metal acquired exchange value, but how political authority attempted to restrict the materials through which exchange could occur.